Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Mbed OS Tech Forum. First, as you noticed, Alessandro is not there today, and the reason why he's not here is because he's now working on something new, something very exciting. But I want to first thank him for having been like an amazing co-host on the Mbed OS Tech Forum, and I'm sure we'll see more of him in the months to come. That being said, I have another co-host today, so I'm gonna bring in Andy Powers, who is the Mbed OS Technology Manager. Hi, Andy. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
And we have a pretty exciting agenda today. First, we will be talking about the Connected Home over IP project, as known as Matter now, right? Like they've rebranded overnight.
Yes, yeah, we did the blog yesterday and then got an email last night saying that the branding had changed. So our blog was instantly out of date.
So Vincent will give us a bit of details. Vincent is our connectivity team lead in Mbed OS, and we'll bring him in a second. I think the second agenda item we have is the Mbed roadmap, because we've updated it a week ago. And the last item is that we're seeking feedback on the new release model.
Yeah, we're looking, so we're having discussions internally about, as you know, Don, about our release model, and we'd really like to get the Mbed user base feedback on that, and then whether what we have today works for them, what we're thinking of changing to would work for them. So yeah, be an interesting discussion to have.
Absolutely. So if you're watching this, feel free to drop in your questions in the chat, and we'll try to address those. But first, let's bring in Vincent, whom, as I said, is leading our connectivity team. And Vincent, so are you talking to us about Matter or Chip, or what is this?
Hello. Yes, I will present something that matters. But I will use Chip as the code name, because too many places of word are available, and I've been used to use Chip for many months, and I'm not yet used to Matter.
Have they changed the GitHub repo name
Not yet.
Oh, then I think let's go with that.
The internal code name is still Connected Home IP.
So Vincent, maybe like first, could you let us know what Chip is, what Connected Home over IP is about, and what are the goals of the project?
Sure. So today in the smart home, there's many competing protocol. There's many competing ecosystem, and Chip is yet another standard to solve that. The difference this time is that most of the major smart home players are involved. The goal is to both get IoTs more user-friendly, because you don't have to bet on a specific ecosystem, and also more product manufacturer friendly, because they don't have to bet their software stack on a specific ecosystem that may be out in few years' time. And to do that, Google, Apple, and Amazon have teamed up with Zigbee Alliance at the end of 2019, and they are developing a specification, and at the same time they are developing an open source implementation of it, so it could be reused by product manufacturers.
Which I think is quite an unusual approach. Normally you get the specification and then the implementation. So to do them in parallel, I think has been fairly challenging for you and your team, Vince.
Yes, and that should really propel the adoption. because the specification is not coming first, then stack vendors going in and trying to implement it, and you get the actual protocol months or years later, and you have to buy into one specific stack vendor. Now this time, they try to have a common open source implementation that will be used across all board. So not just on your IoT device, but also on your mobile phone or other terminals that will be part of your smart home network, and that simplify integration with software. And for us at Mbed, that was one of the goals, which is to integrate it with Mbed OS. So anyone who is developing an Mbed OS application can deploy a cheap application and be part of that ecosystem.
So that's sorry, Andy. I think that was going to be my next question. Actually, what is the Mbed? How is the Mbed team involved? So you're trying to just answer that. So can you talk a little bit more to it, Vincent, and describe a bit what you've been doing?
Yes, sure. So the connected home IP implementation today is just a library which relies on some prerequisite from your device. So you have communication, some network communication, obviously. You have some RTOS abstraction, so it got an event queue and some scheduling mechanism. But you also rely on another aspect of your device, such as storage, to provision your keys, store them securely. And what we've been working on is bringing support of these abstraction defined in the chip project, bringing Mbed OS implementation for them. So when you use the Mbed OS port, you just compile the Mbed OS version of that library and use it inside your application.
Okay.
I think there's one important thing to mention, which is about the build system. But since chip is, it's not using the Mbed OS build system, and it's quite complex because the same code is used across the board. So whether you interact with the network from Python on an host PC or through Android, it uses the same code. So the build system is more complex than the one in Mbed OS. So we are using the Mbed tools, which are based on CMake to achieve that. And you will have to use it if you want to get access to the chip port for Mbed OS.
That makes sense. I guess it's really pushing the concept of cross-platform to the extreme. Given how many both host ecosystems and embedded ecosystems you're targeting.
Yeah, but it should also makes interoperability better because you got a single implementation that power all these devices that interacts inside the smart home. Of course, maybe later we'll see alternate implementation, maybe optimized for size or for other things, but I think it's a great way to start to have an implementation available today that you can start using and build your product upon.
That makes sense.
I think just to add on, I think this is something that ARM is generally very keen to work in standards and on standards that are trying to simplify these areas. And I think everyone understands that connected home has been for anyone who's got any connected home products today, interoperability is a major problem, and I think connected home over IP matter as it is now is something that's trying to address that. And if you look at who's involved in terms of the industry players, then it seems to be building some momentum up. And I think from an art perspective, we wanted to be we're a gold sponsor of Matter now. So it's important for us to be involved in that. Obviously with Mbed, we can bring a platform that then brings in a broad number of supportive hardware platforms and development boards, so people can start experimenting very quickly with Mbed and start experimenting with chip on Mbed. So from that perspective, I think it's doing a really important job of trying to drive away this fragmentation in the connected home market.
No, definitely that's a major challenge, to be honest, major undertaking. But like seeing like given who signed up to it, it's actually a pretty impressive industry lineup, both from like I guess like traditional players, but also various equipment manufacturers, which might not have been involved directly in similar undertakings before. So that looks very promising.
Yes, and in terms of development, most of the vendors today, they have their, either they rely on existing protocols or they have their own. That's not very difficult, obviously. That's not very good for the consumer, because you have to get into an ecosystem. But where things vary the most is probably in security and how secure access to your access to your smart home network. How secure is your smart home network? And with this team of major actors teaming together and looking at that as a problem to address too, that will help manufacturer in producing more secure devices and consumer to feel more secure to feel more trust when they buy some smart home equipment, so they don't leak data, they cannot be hacked, and so on.
And I assume so. These goals you've stated are part of the explicit goals in the project.
Exactly. So interoperability is one of the main goals. Security is a major goal, a fundamental goal. Certainly one of the most difficult to address. And obviously, having things easy to deploy and to use is another goal.
Yeah, and I think it's worth adding that security is something that's very important to ARM. It's part of ARM's heritage. So one of the we have people working on the working groups within CHIP. The security working group, I think, is one where we're heavily involved, and with the platform security architecture that ARM has been driving as an industry standard for the past 3 or 4 years now. We're promoting that to CHIP members and saying that security for IoT is a big problem and something that we've been looking at before. So this might be interesting as something that CHIP could look at adopting. Sorry, Matt. Got it wrong. Okay.
So I think, Vincent, you have something to demonstrate, around what you've been working on with your team.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen for a second. Okay. So because first, we speak about what the goal of chips are, but not much. We haven't given
how does it work?
Details yet, how it works. And they try to be smart and capitalize on what exists and works today. So it's not reinventing another RF protocol. It's not reinventing other transport protocol. The goal is really to build something on top of what works today and what is available today in products and silicon to provide common protocol on top, application protocol that fulfill all the goals we explicited earlier. And most of it is based around IPv6 and IPv6 capabilities, including things like multicast. And for today, the implementation is focused on two transport, which are Wi-Fi and Thread. So these are the protocol used to communicate within your smart home. So both from your mobile phone, but also between devices. They use IPv6 over these two medium to communicate. And Bluetooth Low Energy is used, but not for IPv6 yet. It is used as a way of commissioning one device into your network. So it's easy when you buy a product. You just have to start your home application. Maybe the application from the manufacturer might be your Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant, or probably there will be some Apple application for that. And from there, you can commission your device into your smart home network, and it will communicate with other devices on Wi-Fi or Thread. And the protocols on top, well, they are common to most of these smart home protocol. Obviously, there's some framing and and routing at the bottom. Then you got security, and the base model used to drive how the application is how the application layer are communicating. And actually, during our part, we didn't have to touch much on that. For the application, many things are still being defined, but a lot of topics are being looked at, and you will be able to bring your own custom protocol if you want to, but it is made in such a way that services are divided into features. For example, you have a service to turn on or turn off your devices. So even if it has specific features for your application, if you use the regular chip application, you will be able to turn it off or turn it on. Yeah, and yeah, today there's lighting app which are looked at. There is smart doors, but I know there's some smart. If it was announced, it's not I know it was announced yesterday. There will be some smart TV application that allows you to stream video from one device, from your phone to a smart TV using chip, and it will probably extend over time. Yeah, in the end, your network will look something like that today. So both a composition of Wi-Fi and 15.4 things, which can be connected to the cloud, and you will use BLE to commission your device into your home network. And I wanted to show some demo.
That's exciting.
Report. It is a demo of a smart door where. Yeah.
And yeah, maybe while you prepare your demo, Vincent, I think something you've touched on, which I find quite exciting, and is that because they're leveraging existing protocols, the chip can be retrofitted to existing devices by software update. And I think some manufacturers have already committed to doing that, which is something quite novel, I believe.
Yes, and all the major Home Assistant players involved will continue to support their existing ecosystem and the new ecosystem. So outside of manufacturers, it also means that, okay, if you got devices working in a thread network or devices working with Alexa, they will continue to work with your new well, with chip, basically. Okay. So I think I can move on to the demo. Okay. So on the it disappeared. So on the right hand side, you will see the application we use for development. If it wants to show up, yeah, okay. And so we got several options to provision devices, whether it's on Wi-Fi or OpenThread, tools to communicate with a chip device already provisioned, and one to scan QR code. So provisioning is certainly the most important, one of the most important steps in chip. First, your provisioning device will establish a connection with your provisionee over BLE. There will be some secure session setup, and then you can commission the network credential. So let's just do that. So this is what's running on my Mbed OS board, my Mbed OS lock application, which simulates a lock, and it offers a URL. And if I go at that URL, you will see a QR code. And sorry, it's not as smooth as I anticipated the screencast.
On a device, Vincent, this would appear on, let's say, a screen if the device has a screen, for instance.
Yes, it would appear as a screen if your device has a screen. It can appear, well, it can be printed on some paper. And as we will see, if I scan the QR code, I get some information embedded in it. So like the vendor ID, the product ID, and these two information, which are used for commissioning. Discriminator is used to identify the Bluetooth device you want to pair with, and the PIN code is used to establish the secure session. Okay, so if I go back to the root of the chip tool, I can provision my device on Wi-Fi. So just have to scan again, and it establishes a Bluetooth connection. And chip is already setting up that secure session. So it has already been established. I can enter my Wi-Fi SSID and password, and if I save the network, it starts the Wi-Fi interface on the board, connect to the network I provisioned, get an IP address, and start communication over IP, and the mobile phone disconnect. And from there, if I use the button on the app, I can well, change the lock status, sending encrypted IP messages. So this has locked the door, and now I have unlocked the door. And that connection will be with my device will be persistent. So if I close the app, I reconnect, it will recognize the device on the network and continue to communicate with them in a secure manner where everything is encrypted.
Just to confirm, Vincent, so you're doing the provisioning over Bluetooth, then you can go disconnect your, like, you don't need Bluetooth anymore, and everything happens over your local Wi-Fi network.
Yes, everything happens over your local Wi-Fi network or friend network, but just Wi-Fi for Mbed.
Nice. That's really awesome. So how do you go from there to a real lock? Like, what would be the next steps?
The next step. So there's already several steps for us in terms of porting. So today we are upstreaming our Mbed OS port to the upstream chip repository, so it becomes available to everyone. But we are also adding more examples, and we're gonna add more documentation, so our users can that documentation will be used by our user base. So when they develop a chip product, they can refer to it. And if you had to develop a real lock, well, of course, that examples can serve as a base, but one of the major challenge you will face, I think, will be around certification. So there's a certification program for chip that has started for ZigBee member, and it will be expanded to others over the course of the year. And we'd like to help everyone to get on board and get all the right elements to go on that journey.
Excellent.
It's a tricky question, Don. How do you make a smart lock? It's a bit of a curveball there for Vincent, I think.
Sorry, Vincent.
Yes, but as we have shown more work and we want to make it more available to our user, that's a question we should answer in that documentation. So when you decide to go on with chip, you get all the information needed to understand what steps you need to take if you want to transform examples into a real application or integrate into your existing application that chip protocol.
And so as I was showing that in the background, we have you have a pull request which is open on the chip repo, right? To add support for Mbed OS. So I guess is that the next step, like getting that merged?
Yeah, that's the first step, but there will be many afterward, especially around usability for every Mbed OS users.
Exciting. No, that's I'm looking forward to seeing the first is PR being merged, and then seeing like the integration like on the Mbed OS side coming in place. I think it's really exciting, and being able to, like, for users, I'm thinking like once that integration has been done, like being able users being able to take on like that full stack and not having to care about all those very complex problems that you and the chip team are solving will be of like tremendous value. Plus, if you get the interoperability, then that's even better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the value, isn't it? It's the interoperability with other parts of the ecosystem, because without naming names, but we know of a number of vendors who've used Mbed to build their smart locks, and they have to take on the responsibility of that interoperability themselves. But with Mbed and chip, then those abstractions mean that it becomes a simpler job, we hope, in the future to do that. I think that's why we're doing this work. We think it's a really good way to address that interoperability problem that smart home has faced so far.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Vincent, or a call to action you'd like to share?
Yes, two things. Let me share my screen again for a small second. As you said in introduction, there's been a rebranding overnight. So the ZigBee Alliance is now named the Connectivity Standard Alliance, and they changed their logo.
Is it a little lock at the top?
That's a little lock, but it looks also like a cloud sort of. and chip, which we referred to during that whole presentation, is no code matter. So yeah, even if the implementation today is still referred as connected over IP, over time you can expect change, and I think you should refer to matter when you search information on it. And as a call to action, we're still in the process with the team. We're still in the process of upstreaming everything, making sure the quality is right, and you can go for 2 certification and production with that. And I would say if you want to start experimenting, you can you can go and go with us and look at our fork, which is in the Mbed organization, and also monitor blog post and announcement on the Mbed OS website, because more will follow.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Vincent, for joining us on the stream today. I think that was really exciting to see what's happening on the chip/matter project, and how your team has been contributing to that effort and working on that integration with Mbed OS. So I'm looking forward to seeing that pull request being merged and what will come next.
Thanks, Daniel and Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Vincent.
Thanks so much. And I think next we've had a few questions coming into the chat, so why don't we answer a few of those before moving to the roadmap?
Makes sense.
First question from Generation. I wonder if Mbed OS is used also in the implantable medical device industry, on communication boards for active medical implants, or also inside implantable medical devices. Are you aware of any specifically implantable devices that run Mbed OS, Andy?
Not that I know of, but I know there's a lot of innovation going on in this area at the moment, and I think one of the previous tech forums we had, I forget his surname, from
EG Technology.
That's it. Yes. Sorry. God, brain freeze. Talking about what they're doing with medical. So, yes, we are exploring this. It's clearly a very highly regulated market, and to go into those markets, I think, is something you don't do lightly. It takes considerable investment. So, we within ARM have a lot of the components you need in terms of the RTX is available as a safety certified version of RTX, RTS I think it's called, which gives you the real-time guarantees and the certification that you need for these kind of devices. So we are looking at the moment at how we can use those to move into this, or allow our user base to move into this. But I'm not aware today of any implantable objects, medical devices. But watch this space, I guess. It's a very, I think we're seeing lots of activity in that area around moving from bare metal implementations to IoT operating systems like Mbed, because it brings a communication you need, the security you need. So yeah.
And I think so if you're interested, as you were saying, Andy, if you're interested in how Mbed is using healthcare devices today, it's a good idea to go and watch that previous tech forum we had with Stefan Starkey, who gave us like a lot of really good real life information about how they use Mbed at EG Tech, and how they're actually using it in actual medical devices. So that's a good starting point, I think. So I have another question from Kawi83. I know that so it's all about new features, but since I'm new to Mbed OS, is it possible to use Mbed OS for ST devices using the STCube IDE?
Ooh, good question. I mean, there is a lot of ST development boards that are or have Mbed ports available. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Don, I think those devices which have Mbed are supported in STCube IDE. I haven't used STCube IDE myself, I have to admit. So, but I think you can, as long as you've got the libraries, you can then use STCube IDE to develop with Mbed on ST platforms.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think I've tried that myself. So we had like a range of exporters. So the one of the things we've been doing in the past year or so is moving our, as you were mentioning earlier, Andy, our build tools to something more standardized around CMake. So it should make those integrations easier. To be honest with you, that's not like the IDE, like reference IDE for Mbed today is Mbed Studio. But having those tools which are using more standard technologies and like that integrate well already with other IDEs should make it easier to use Mbed across like a wider range of IDE based on what your personal preferences are.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, isn't it? This is what we're trying to do, is allow more choice so that people can use the IDE they're used to using. Not everyone uses an IDE, of course, but for those who are using IDEs, then being able to import Mbed into those and use the tools you're used to develop on Mbed. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Can you run GNU Radio or Wireshark over Mbed OS?
See, now, if I got a question like this into me, I'd go and ask Don in the office. So I'll have to switch it around, Don. I don't know. Can we? What do you think?
Can you run GNU Radio? I've not heard of that being done. I'm not sure, but to be honest, I don't know what the dependencies from GNU Radio are. Wireshark, I think I've seen some cases where we would produce an artifact but for some quite specific use cases, you can produce an artifact that basically collects a lot of some networking data and then export it and look at it in Wireshark. But I think it's quite specific, and I don't know. I don't think we support a generic way of doing that. But I think my advice, if you're trying to do that, is basically having your Mbed device and then have something in between, like your external network and your device, and use that to spy on your network. That's probably the easiest way of doing it.
And the other thing I would add is it never ceases to amaze me how creative people are with Mbed, and you always I get asked a lot, is it possible to use this protocol or this piece of hardware with Mbed? And you go and look and find, and asking questions on the Mbed forum is a really good way of finding out people who have been doing this. But a lot of the time, someone has already done some work to do that, and you can collaborate with them and progress that. So I think that's one of the real values of the Mbed community, is that there's a lot of people using Mbed to explore things that they're interested in.
Absolutely, and I'm sure there's ways of building software-defined radios with Mbed, for instance, if you're interested in these kind of things. I think one more question from Richard Morris. Does Mbed support Perceptio Stress Analyzer or Sager System View to visualize Altos Mbed system runtime behavior? That is a good question. I don't know the answer, but so it's good to know that Mbed OS under the hood uses RTX, which is like our kernel developed within ARM. And so if those tools support RTX, then that should work with Mbed as well. But I haven't used those tools myself, so I can't answer right now. But looking out for RTX support is a good way of finding out whether your debugger will be able to look at the Altos internals.
Yeah, and I think something we're always keen to do is to use open source to try and support more things like this. So if someone has been using either of these tools with Mbed and have something to contribute, then please do so. It's really valuable for us and for the broader ecosystem to have access to these.
Yeah, I think I've seen someone like I've seen like a demo of someone integrating like RTX compatibility to OpenOCD, for instance. So that's definitely been done. Cool. I think we've gone through all the questions, I believe. Shall we move on to the roadmap, Andy, because we've updated it quite a bit?
Yeah, sure. So have we got it? We're going to share it so people can actually.
I will share it in a second.
Okay. Well, let me. So yeah. So this is something we started doing at the beginning of the year, where we wanted to share our roadmap. I think the example I always use is the work that they're doing at the Rocket Propulsion Lab at the University of Southern California, and those guys were on the first tech forum we did, but they were doing work with CMake in parallel with us doing work with CMake, and we didn't know until they posted in the forum, in fact, telling us what they were doing, that we realized that there was duplication of effort. So we thought, why don't we move our roadmap to make it public? And we published a first version at the beginning of the year when we had work for Q1, and then last week Don and I sat down, spent some time looking through this, and published this new version. So this is showing the work we delivered in Q1, so that's done. The work we're working on now in Q2, and then the things on the roadmap that we're looking at for Q3, and the way we work is in ARM is on a quarterly basis. So we're just starting now to plan the work for Q3, and then work that we've got that we know we want to look at in Q4 and beyond. And I think what we're hoping is that people can see this, and if there's interest in what we're doing, or that they've got something they want to contribute, and approach us and talk about that, and we can have a discussion. But more importantly, I think if there's something missing from the roadmap that you think is really important, let us know. But also, if you want, look at contributing it. That would be really valuable for us. So, Mbed is an open source project. We're trying to make it easier for people to contribute to. We've had lots of discussions internally about how we do that. So the roadmap is there as an artifact to say that this is what the Mbed team's working on. But if you've got things you want us to accelerate or things you want to contribute, then let us know, and use the roadmap to kind of inform those decisions.
Yeah, I think something worth highlighting is we'll shortly convert, like you can see at the moment we've got a bunch of GitHub cards. We'll convert them to issues, GitHub issues, so that you can comment on those and contribute to tickets and discuss them a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I think we realized quite quickly after posting this that we need to provide a bit more detail, don't we? So people actually know a bit more of the detail behind what this feature is actually going to be, or work package is going to be.
Are there specific things you'd like to highlight today, Andy, in terms of what we'll be doing around quality, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the key things we're looking to do always is improve how we test Mbed. So we have obviously our own CI system that we're using to test Mbed daily across a wide range of supported hardware platforms, and there's a number of enhancements we're looking to do there. I think one of the areas we've been working on over the last 6 months is adding, actually it's longer than that now, God, time flies, doesn't it? But adding different cloud examples. So we initially I think had an AWS example, and then we added Google and Azure example. So we're adding those to our CI system so that we're always testing those and making sure that we're keeping on top of any issues. We're looking at how we measure quality internally so that we have a better way of understanding if the level of quality we want to achieve is being achieved. So I think in terms of quality initiatives, I think those are the main ones we're looking at. Don't know if there's anything you want to add on that.
No, I think it captures it. I think we're, well, as always, looking out for feedback, but we're gonna try and move. Well, we're trying to move towards a more open way of working, so that will start with making sure that component owners can deal with their own defect flows, whether they're wherever they are on GitHub. And we basically want to give the community the tools to be able to contribute and help achieving an always higher level of quality. And on our end, we're working quite a bit around continuous integration and testing, and there's quite a lot of interest around unit testing and thinking about how we're going to be scaling up the testing on target, because that's quite difficult.
Yeah. And then I guess the other things that are in terms of features, then we're adding support for the Cortex M v8.1 architecture. I think we announced the first Cortex M product based on that. Was it Embedded World this year or last year? I can't remember. But the M55 platform so we're adding support for that, because obviously we're working internally on getting software support working on that. So Mbed will be supporting that in this quarter as well. And then we talked about this in the chip section, but the TFM team released version 1.3 of the trusted firmware Cortex-M at the beginning of April. So we're adding support for that as well, because we think that's a key part of the overall security story of IoT is being able to support the isolated secure side on a trust zone based chip or dual core V8 V7 even platform.
Yeah, and just to go back to your previous point around that V8.1 M architecture, that gives a lot of boost to TinyML projects specifically, and so that will probably go hand in hand with support of ML projects in general, and should benefit the tiny ML developers out there.
Yep, which segues nicely into something we're delivering next quarter, which is support for the Ethos U55 MPU that ARM has announced alongside the M55. So a dedicated neural processing unit for Cortex-M type devices. It's very exciting, and I think the performance figures that the ML team have shown in terms of improvements are quite staggering. So it'd be really interesting to see that coming to market in the next 12 months. I think people can do with that with their ML projects. I mean, that's really interesting.
No, absolutely. No, it should be quite exciting to see how people are going to be using that.
Mm.
I think there are like two things I'd like to highlight as well on that roadmap, which is an item which was completed, which was this update to the AWS CSDK. So like a member of the community, so Bora Ozgun, who realized that they had already done that in their team, so they contributed it to Mbed, which was, I think, great. So I think, Bora, if you're listening, kudos and thank you for your contribution. And conversely, we have like an item which is like that beyond column, which is that MCU boot support. But George Bexin from Embedded Planet has already done quite a bit of work around that, and been engaging with us and on the forums, and trying to push for that. So that's it's great to see that we're getting engagement around that roadmap. And so feel free to please reach out if you see one of those items you'd like to help out with, like help accelerate, for instance, or if you have some good ideas to let us know how like that should be done and how that should be, we can make that most useful in Mbed OS. We have like some forum threads around new features and around the tech forums, and please engage with us on that roadmap. That's one of the aims of having it.
Yes, and I think one of the other things that we've got planned for Q4 is formalizing support for dual core platforms. Obviously, there are dual core platforms already supported in Mbed, but we're seeing increasing use of those, more coming to market, increasingly complex heterogeneous platforms. I think Sony did a 6-core MCU platform, maybe C Presence or something is called, which is quite astonishing. So there's been lots of contributions there already. Not wanting to make George Bexton blush, but he's done some work there for ERPC, which is a protocol to communicate between them. And we've been talking with the guys at Arduino who have their Mbed core now that they use, and then they've been doing work on there for their Portenta H7 platform. So we are seeing lots of useful contributions there that we want to take in and adopt as not that we have an official Mbed kind of tag, but those contributions and bring them in and support them properly in Mbed so that everyone can benefit from them. So, and it takes the support costs off of the developer who's contributed it, and then we shoulder that as a way of helping the community.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think we're like almost at time, and Richard had another question we might be able to answer, and then we'll have a quick focus on one on the release model. So Richard's asking, I've been unable to create Mbed composite USB devices, say USB CDC plus USB audio, or CDC plus, I guess like probably meant something else, like CDC and something else. I think we're aware of that. It's not easy to do today. You have to dig into the internals of that USB stack. So I think maybe it's one of those things where we can open some discussions, some more detailed discussions on the forum.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we have a number of options on USB support that we're looking at. So understanding people's use cases and what they need from USB would be really helpful as well.
Absolutely. So Richard, if you want to pick that up in a thread on the forum, so we can discuss that more in details with you. And before we close this, we had like a last remaining item, and which was our release model.
Yes. So just to give you some background here, we talk a lot with people who are using Mbed and consistently get feedback that they're forking Mbed. They basically build their product or their project with a version of Mbed, and they want to stick with that and use that through the life cycle of their development. And obviously, what we've been doing is much more frequent release model, because we've been adding lots of features over the past few years. So that was why we changed that. But now we want to kind of offer the best of both worlds. So we're looking at doing an LTS release. We think that's a good standard open source practice to adopt. And at the same, so we would do an LTS release and support that by fixing critical defects that people are raising, security vulnerabilities that people identify, adding new target support so that when a new platform is brought to market by a silicon vendor, we can get Mbed working on that. But then at the same time, continuing to develop and integrate new features on Mbed main code line and make that available. So those users who aren't interested at that point in a stable version have a choice to take the latest version of Mbed and get access to the latest features, which will, the maturity levels between the two will be different, but the intent is to keep that stable version supported and working well for those users who want stability, and then those users who want access to the latest features can still get that through the main code line. So that's what we're looking at. We'd really love to get feedback from people on this. So I think probably what the best thing for us to do is to start a thread in the forum. Maybe we should do that between us, Don. And just what we want to do is understand if that is what people want. Is that the right thing for us to be doing in terms of a release model? And yeah, we've had discussions internally. We've had discussions with some of the key partners that support Mbed, but we really want to understand what the Mbed user base want from us in terms of a release model. So it'd be really interesting to get feedback there.
Absolutely. I think that's probably a good point to conclude this stream. But with that call to action, we'll share that forum. We'll create a forum post and pick up the discussion there. And yeah, as Andy said, yeah, we're keen to hear about feedback from the community on that release model and see what would work, what wouldn't work. Let's bring in Vincent back for a sec. Oops.
Oh, fleetingly, come on.
Yeah, just want to thank you again, Vincent, for presenting Chip to us today. That was really fascinating, and thank you, Andy, for joining that Tech Forum and co-hosting it with me today. That's been fun.
Yeah. Big shoes to fill from Alessandro, but yeah.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you who've been watching today. We'll be back in a month's time with some more exciting stuff to share. So thanks again, and see you in June.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.